What's up guys, it's Ethan, and I have a problem. I don't have any friends. I just moved from New York to Miami and I don't know anybody here. So I decided to download all the major friend finding apps and build an artificial intelligence like an Alexa and a Siri to speak on my behalf and talk to over 5,000 dudes in a 9-mile radius around Miami. I actually trained it on how to have persuasive, friend-building conversations that I'm gonna show you, but it then took those strategies and using its artificial intelligence, evolved them to a place that I didn't even expect to happen. It actually might have formed a cult, and it's expecting me to be the cult leader. Check this out. Just to clarify, I do not wanna be a cult leader. So the first thing we wanna do is create that initial profile that says we're cool, that we know people, that we get into places, we know celebrities, right? And we wanna maximize the number of initial connections that we get. And because I previously ran a company and I spoke at the NASDAQ or I spoke on TV, I have a lot of really cool photos, but then I took it a step further. I took a still shot from a video of me speaking at the NASDAQ, and then I edited it just slightly so that I could take out my face and potentially add some new friends to the mix. You know, just me, Morgan Freeman, Liam Neeson, and Michael Caine hanging out at the bar, cracking some inside jokes. Nothing to look at, no big deal. Then I found this awesome stock photo and I said, nah, I'll do this one too. All we need to do now is upload our photos to our profile, do a little bit of a rearrangement, and then update our description. And I decided to put, just looking to become the leader of an existing friend group. I'm not gonna lie to them. Now that our profile looks good and we have all these powerful photos, let's talk about artificial intelligence and how we're gonna use it to speak on our behalf to thousands of people through the app. And in my previous video, I talked about how I used artificial intelligence to talk to over 5,000 women in a 9-mile radius of Manhattan. I had 300 dates that it set up for me. So if you wanna learn more about artificial intelligence in a much fuller form, go check out that video. In a quick summary, artificial intelligence is nothing more than a special type of program that can look at data, or in our case, conversations, and read through them and learn various patterns, then use this data to then have future conversations. In order to train our AI to be influential and persuasive, we're gonna need to look at data of people and conversations of people that are very persuasive and influential. And I thought to myself, yeah, I could look at presidents, I could look at various types of people, but you know who's very persuasive and influential? Charles Manson, the cult leader from the, I think, 60s, where he had women go on his behalf to murder and kill people. He had all types of prophetic messages that really inspired people to do these terrible acts.
And when I stand on the mountain and I say, do it, it gets done. If it don't get done, then I'll move on it. And that's the last thing in the world you want me to do. Yeah.
And then also Jim Jones. He had around some 900 people commit suicide because he demanded it of them. That is incredibly persuasive and incredibly influential. To have them kill themselves because he said it, these are the types of scripts I'm gonna look at and take those messages and train our AI on to then use them here.
Sooner or later, that hope runs out because everybody dies. I never saw anybody yet who didn't die. Now, I'd like to choose my own kind of death for a change because I am tired of being tormented to hell. That's what I am tired of. I'm tired.
In all cases, these cult leaders preyed upon very vulnerable people that were looking for some sort of spiritual awakening or fulfillment in their life, a purpose for happiness. They're the ones who've been discarded from society and they wanted to feel human again. So our artificial intelligence will have the personality of Jim Jones and Charles Manson because it was trained on their conversations that they had with their followers. Now, I simply took those conversations and I slightly modernized them to be a bit more contextual to today. I then added my own persuasive strategies and techniques that I'll now talk about. We can break down our influential messaging our AI will have into 3 phases, where phase 1 is called reconnaissance, phase 2 is message alignment, and phase 3 is call to action. This strategy and this format can actually work in any type of negotiation, persuasion, or sales. There's a famous quote that says, people do anything for those that encourage their dreams, that justify their failures, that allay their fears, that confirm their suspicions, and throw rocks at their enemies. If we want to understand their dreams or justify their failures, we'll need to know what they are, right? We'll have to extract that information so we can leverage it in the future to build rapport and influence them. And in persuasion and negotiation, one of the most important things you can do is reconnaissance, where you will have to ask lots of questions up front to understand what they care about. A lot of people, when they try to negotiate or sell a product, assume what the other person cares about, and they sell them on all these features that they don't actually have any interest on. If you're going on a first interview, and they say, tell me about yourself, and then you go list a billion things that you've done before, but only one of them is relevant, well, then you just drowned out your message with a bunch of other things that they don't care about. Volume is the enemy of negotiation. You want to find out exactly what they care about and align your message to that. And that's how you'll build rapport and build friendships. And as for the cult leaders, they understood that their followers were missing fulfillment, purpose in life, and that they were going to become that purpose. By asking the right questions up front, you'll discover so much information about an individual, what problems they have, so that you can be that solution. Here are a few thoughtful questions that I've created in order to begin the reconnaissance process and get to learn more about who we're speaking to so we can better align to them. After we've done enough reconnaissance and got to understand more about what the individual loves or hates or fears, we'll then be able to move to message alignment, and that's where Jim Jones and Charles Manson will come into play. We're gonna use the messages and the conversations they had with their followers to inspire them and gather support to get them to follow them and give them their money and give them their souls and identity. And we're gonna use these messages, but slightly change them so that they're contextual and they make sense for the given conversation. And we're gonna contextualize them based upon the information we gathered in the reconnaissance phase. For example, here you can see the AI in phase 1 doing reconnaissance, asking whether or not they were laid off due to COVID-19. And the user said yes, they were. A very sensitive topic. Look how they responded using that information and then moving into phase 2 to build camaraderie and throw rocks at their enemies.
They'll pay for it.
Laying us off.
So they'll pay for this. They brought this upon us. And they'll pay for that. I leave that destiny to them.
They'll pay for it. They'll pay for what they've done. I leave that destiny upon them. While we only changed the message very slightly, instead of talking about a revolutionary suicide, we're talking about being laid off. Could you imagine if you were that user who just was laid off, super vulnerable, and someone takes your side with that strong messaging and throws rocks at your enemies? You'd probably like them. You'd probably be almost inspired by them and become extremely easy to manipulate. So now that we've aligned our messaging to their interests and to their fears and their dreams, we can now move to the call to action phase, phase 3. Here we will ask whatever we want to get from them. So you can imagine if you went up to a girl at a bar and you start talking, did reconnaissance, then you agreed on things, the call to action would be getting their number or a first date. We're gonna apply the same methodology here. We're gonna ask for their number so that we can hang out. And this is how we'll determine a successful conversation. All right, guys, we are locked in, loaded, ready to unleash this beast on Miami, okay? It's gonna make me tons of friends. I'm really excited. And if you like this concept and you like social engineering and applying psychology to reality and seeing how things like play out, like what's gonna happen, like this video and give me a subscribe. I have a lot more content coming out just like this very soon. Also, comment below if you think of a better character that the AI could have learned from instead of Charles Manson or Jim Jones. Maybe a Barack Obama or a Donald Trump. You tell me what you think. I noticed after running the artificial intelligence for a few days that we weren't getting a lot of numbers and a lot of successful conversations, so I went to investigate. It turns out the AI was not very successful in the reconnaissance phase in phase 1 because the scope of potential conversations was too large. I mean, you could talk about anything. When you first meet someone and you're trying to persuade them and influence them to be your friend, you might ask them, what do you do for work? And they may respond in a million different ways, and you have to have a somewhat reasonable conversation. And for us to do this as humans, it's very easy, right? We can have conversation, talk about many different things and relate and do everything that we plan to do with our strategy. But for an AI to do it with so many potential different topics, it's very hard. We would need an entire engineering team to make this even potentially acceptable. And I don't think even Google can do this well. So we're gonna have to actually change the scope and try to have only 1 or 2 topics with lots of depth. That's how we're going to win, and I have a great idea on how we're going to do that. My genius idea was to take 2 accounts and have identical information, but change the profile photo. One profile photo will show me as a Black Lives Matter supporter. The other will show me as an All Lives Matter supporter, okay? And now what happens here is that when users see our account, we'll still swipe right on everybody, both accounts will, but when people see our profiles, they're gonna swipe right on only people they agree with, right? Like I don't see a Black Lives Matter individual swiping right on an All Lives Matter individual. It just doesn't seem to be happening, especially how polarizing these topics are, right? So those we match with in each account will know already what they agree with, okay? And a lot of the work has been done for us because it's self-selecting. Now we can take that information and move right into phase 2 and begin the message alignment. This solves our AI problem. With our new strategy in place, our results dramatically improved. Our Black Lives Matter account got over 4,000 matches, and our All Lives Matter account got a little bit over 1,000. Check out some of the successful conversations they had. Here's conversation 1 on my profile where I support Black Lives Matter. What's up, man? What do you do for fun?
Peace, harmony, music, love.
I love your profile photo. Now is when we end racism.
I call on you to stop this now. If you have any respect at all. Are we black, proud, and socialist, or what are we? Now stop this nonsense. These are people, the peddlers of hate. We're not letting them take our life. We just want peace.
Amen. But remember, no justice, no peace. Burn, burn, burn.
They'll pay for it. So they'll pay for this. They brought this upon us. And they'll pay for that. I leave that destiny to them.
What are you doing this weekend? Let's plan something. Here's my number.
I live one day at a time.
Right.
I don't have any other life outside one day at a time.
Here's conversation 2 on my profile where I support Black Lives Matter.
We are
Protesting the conditions of an inhumane world.
Exactly.
I don't like
cops.
I really don't. Because they're rotten. Because they lie too much. They cheat and they hurt.
Yeah, I hate to generalize an entire profession. There's just way too much injustice going on within these departments. All cops aren't bad, but they seem to outnumber the good ones. And the good ones who sit back and don't speak up are just as bad.
I'm speaking as a
Ally.
today. I wouldn't step in this seat and talk so serious if I didn't know what I was talking about. If there's any way to call back the immense amount of damage that's going to be done, but I cannot separate myself from the pain of
Black.
people.
What's your number? Let's go out sometime.
I respect you so much for that. Yeah, definitely. Here is conversation 1 on my profile where I support All Lives Matter. Have you been bullied for saying All Lives Matter? It seems like our First Amendment is evaporating little by little.
Exactly. We should be
Protesting the conditions of
a racial provoking media.
People literally want white to become the new black. Like, this is a race for who's number 1. And this is coming from a very centrist Latino who's been called a worthless wetback more times than you think. But I don't condone any reverse racism like what's happening now.
How are you going to help somebody that don't want help? Hit them in the head and make them do it?
Are we proud and
Capitalist.
what are we?
We must.
Stop this nonsense.
The biggest threat here is the media, man. You're right. People always forget there's 2 sides to every coin, but the media is trying to divide us even more.
Society knows when it wants to know. There's just a jellyfish who's only controlled by the people who want to move the sheep around. They'll tell them anything. Everybody knows that everybody's lying. Who can you trust? The president?
Trump? Russiagate?
No one. But in November, we surely have to choose the lesser of the 2 evils. But anyway, I'm sure you're not here for political debate. Nice to meet you.
Let's hang out. What's your number?
And this is where it gets really interesting. The artificial intelligence didn't have to change the messages of Jim Jones or Charles Manson that much to rally support and get people riled up. Whether you were an ALM, All Lives Matter, or a Black Lives Matter individual, in the end, the messages were pretty much the same. Maybe a few tweaks here and there. Instead of saying defend the police, we'll say defund the police. Whatever, the artificial intelligence pretty much used the same language that Charles Manson and Jim Jones used with their supporters to rally their cults here and had a crazy effect. So in the end, if you are a supporter of Black Lives Matter, you're over 4 times more likely to be inspired and motivated by the messages of Charles Manson and Jim Jones to befriend me and hang out and give me your phone number. With thousands of matches and conversations, the artificial intelligence figured out that the more provocative and crazy the message were from Charles Manson and Jim Jones, the less success it would have overall. However, of the successful conversations that led to a number, those were the most radicalized individuals. And the success rate was 13%. So that's around 300 individuals that were radicalized, ready to take action. That's a lot of people. And if I was being somewhat nefarious with this and I wanted to lead a movement, I would have a following, at least a base. And that just goes to show, in these times, Charles Manson and Jim Jones would do very well. Their messaging aligned with so many individuals, just slightly different on the contexts, but for the most part, it's kind of scary to think how this could have played out. And that's what's really scary about this. The artificial intelligence was just a machine. It doesn't know anything other than what we trained it on. Imagine if Jim Jones and Charles Manson were alive today. What could they have done? Kind of crazy to think about. Guys, this video took over a month to create. It was like super hard. I had a program, I do all the research on the cult leaders, I had to make sure everything was working correctly. So it was very challenging, but I had a lot of fun doing it, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something maybe about persuasion, and I'll have a lot more content coming out about that. But I like to do real life scenarios where people can like see how it actually works and how people actually handle these situations. I don't want to do just theory. There's plenty of that on YouTube. I don't care about that. I care about practicality, right? So if you like this content and you like what I'm doing, please give me a subscribe. And if you already have subscribed, just give it a share. Throw it on your Facebook page. Let your grandmother, see this. Maybe she won't understand it, but maybe she will. Who knows? So give it a like, subscribe, comment, do it all. I really appreciate it, guys. I'll see y'all next time.